On today's episode of the Everyday Leader podcast, I am interviewing Preston Tilley. Preston's a husband and father of two daughters. He leads an 8-figure direct-to-consumer sales organization, and their focus is on discipline, high standards, and leadership development. His mission is to drastically influence leaders to scale to a higher standard by taking proactive action to an extreme level of detail to redefine what's possible within themselves. Really enjoyed our conversation today about standards and leveling up, and excited to share the lessons that Preston has for us.
Welcome to the Everyday Leader podcast. Leadership is a choice. Join me, Matt, and my co-hosts Drew and Tate each episode as we break down how to lead powerfully in your family, team, and organization.
Welcome to today's episode of the Everyday Leader podcast. Super excited to be joined today with Preston Tilley, and he's done some incredible things the last few years, and excited to talk about his leadership journey and what he's learned along the way. Welcome, Preston.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be on. So thanks for inviting me.
If you guys recognize the name, that's because his brother Josh Tilley, the coach's coach, has been on our podcast a couple times before. I'm business partners with Preston's brother Josh, and I've seen Preston do some incredible things the past few years, and so yeah, excited to have him on. In fact, we've actually had, and maybe there's something to this, we've actually had several people on the show who have done or are currently in pest control.
Cool.
So it's kind of, I don't know, maybe there's something there with
Yeah.
that. So but we'll dive into a little bit about your career and your background. But before we do that, we've kind of found that when you say the word leadership, it means different things to different people. I guess how would you define leadership, Preston?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think there's a lot of different different definitions of leadership. Ultimately, I think leadership is just who, the leader is someone that's followed. People follow a leader, and so leadership can look a lot of different ways, but ultimately it's who can build the rapport of the people, have trust in in people, and as they go and do certain things, others follow. So I don't know if that's a super good definition, but someone that leads by example that people can follow and gain experience from by doing so.
No, I like that. A leader is someone that others follow. So there's got to be a reason why that happens, right? Awesome. Well, yeah, tell our listener, by now, if you've listened to our show very much, you probably have a little bit of idea of door to door and pest control and what that might look like. But for someone who has no idea what this world looks like, Preston, maybe share a little bit about what you do and kind of what it looks like for the guys that come into your industry.
As far as the door-to-door pest control needs, so we focus on the summer months. Essentially, or generally, it's April through September. April and September, kind of pre and post season. Main focus is really May through August, and I guess kind of what it looks like for 8 months of the year. Outside of the summer, we're recruiting, building teams, training guys how to sell door to door, and a lot of different skill sets that go into that. And then for the summertime, the teams relocate to one market together. So here, I'm actually in Louisville, Kentucky right now. We have a team of about 30 guys, and we all live in the same apartment complex. We have 9 different units with guys spread out between the apartments. Every morning, we meet up and have a team meeting, and then go out and knock. And so we go do that Monday through Saturday. Sundays we're off, but it's kind of a summer boot camp.
Yeah. Why do guys do that? Why do guys move out somewhere for the summer to go knock on doors? That might sound terrible to some people.
Yeah. A big reason why I've stayed in it and continue doing it is the experience that it provides to others. So a big piece of it, right? We're recruiting guys that haven't done door to door before. Pretty much always 18 to 25. A lot of them college students. A lot of them, return missionaries. Some are just, guys going to school, just graduated high school, and so it's generally younger guys that are just starting to get into a career path. And what I've recognized is that a summer of door-to-door sales can transform your entire life. The discipline that's required, it's a grind, mentally, physically, emotionally. Any door-to-door sales emotionally is tough. You learn a lot about yourself when you're by yourself all day getting cussed at and, all kinds of experiences. And I've seen hundreds of guys come out, and it's extremely difficult, but they leave completely different people that, sometimes do it again, sometimes, build and grow within. Sometimes they use it as just the skills and resources they gain from that to go and, accomplish massive things. But yeah, just those that are willing to go and work extremely hard, I've seen it transform their entire life.
Yeah, no, and that was my experience doing it. On the flip side, you can make some awesome money
Yeah.
doing door-to-door sales, and that's
Yeah.
another influencer for a lot of guys. In fact, that's why I got into it. And what I found is exactly what you said. Like to me, I mean, the making good money in sales is great, but my experience when I did pest control, I went from selling. I feel like I'm old when I say this, but I was selling satellite TV the summer before. I don't know if anyone even does that anymore. I think it's like fiber. Fiber
Yeah.
is
Yep.
they
Fiber.
probably
Yep.
replace that. Uh, but I went and was learning a new industry, and I was in a market where there's not as many bugs. I was up in Denver, got some
Cool.
sales my first few weeks, and then I had 2 weeks where I bageled, and I was leading a team, and like I almost quit and almost threw in the towel. And the best thing I did was sticking those first couple weeks out. It
Yeah.
honestly changed my life. Like going
Yeah.
through something really challenging like that, and then being able to turn it around and have success. So
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
yeah. So one thing I've noticed, Preston, is you've done an incredible job of growing some some large teams pretty quickly. And I mean, I think that's always something that guys like, the idea of like, oh, I can go. Well, what if I could just hire a bunch of guys and I don't have to knock anymore?
Yeah.
If everybody could just do that, like that almost sounds like multi-level marketing. It's
Yeah.
not like, why have you had success growing and building teams like you have?
Yeah. Um, I think a lot of it has come down to the mentality in sales, and you learn when you're knocking doors personally, kind of the mindset and what's required there. And a lot of people are under the impression that recruiting and building is really difficult. And just like sales, if you go out thinking, "Oh man, this is so hard," there's nobody that's going to buy from me, and you're telling that story, you find that it's really hard to get a few deals. But you flip the narrative of, dude, there's a lot of buyers out here. You show up with the right attitude, the right mindset, you put the work in. And what's hard in sales, even recruiting, is that it's always fluctuating. You can put in, a ton of effort, and on one day you can see absolutely zero results, where you make zero sales and make $0. And on the flip side, you could go out and, do 5, 10, 15 deals and make thousands of dollars in, a day. And so it's a hard game because your inputs always have to, be there. You always have to show up, and your outputs are always up and down. And so it's really similar. And I think a lot of people have a limiting belief of, hey, recruiting is really hard. It's hard to build up teams. Um, and as we just dialed in as a team, as a group, and put direct action items in place of, cool, we want to recruit at a high level. We need to put the same inputs we would put in as if we wanted to sell at a high level. It all requires, a high level of inputs. And so putting those systems in place, and just by doing that, getting really consistent, instilling that vision in our leaders, right? As we bring guys on board and instill that vision, they want to start recruiting, they put the inputs in. And as we've been able to systemize it, we've been able to find really good opportunities for ourselves to build, but also for our leaders, for our guys that go out and perform well, that want to build and grow. It's like, hey, here's a system, plug into the system, and they're able to recruit and build at a high level too. So that's kind of been our experience. I think a lot of it just comes down to the mindset of, hey, this is a real job. And like a lot of people in door-to-door space, it's like, okay, this is a hustle, a side hustle. I'll, try to recruit. I'll reach out to one buddy if I think of it. And it's like, you're not going to see a ton of results, but you spend 8-10 hours a day for 8 months recruiting. You're going to recruit at a high level.
Yeah, no, That's awesome. I like that you just like spoke about the mindset around that and
Mm,
like what you tell yourself and what you believe's a big part of the success that you
yeah,
ultimately have.
yeah.
So, I guess how has that played into things like just the way you view it or the way you believe it? Like maybe share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, yeah. I've been extremely fortunate to be mentored by Blake Erickson, who's now partners with Ben Hardy, and they just wrote a book.
I just got his book in
You got it, The
here on my
Science of
desk.
Scaling.
Yeah, I don't know if it's out yet, but my friend
Yeah,
Schweiden is no I guess knows them and sent me.
yeah. I think the official is July maybe, but yeah, I got the audiobook and I just finished the audio this week, and I've been fortunate to have been able to work with Blake the last 3 to 4 years, and their big message, and the book is called The Science of Scaling, and working with Ben Hardy, who wrote 10x easier than 2x, and a lot of books along those lines of operating a different way gets you to a certain goal. And so, if you have a goal of getting 10 recruits, the pathway to get there is very different than if you set a goal to get 100 recruits. And ultimately, 10 recruits or 100 recruits both require you to work extremely hard, but it's going to be different steps. 100 recruits, you're going to have a different pathway, and 10 recruits is going to be a different pathway. Neither is harder than the other, just one is a bigger goal. So if you're going to spend your time doing something, might as well set a big goal and go push for a massive goal than just shoot for, hey, I want to recruit, 5 guys. I want to recruit 10 guys. So go recruit 150. You know.
So I'm curious, what would you say to a listener who says, well, it does seem harder. It seems like it'd be harder to bring on 100 people than it would 10, or it'd be harder to, make, I don't know, $1 million instead of $100,000. Like
Yeah.
what would you say to someone saying those things?
Yeah, my first thought would be I haven't perfected it, so I don't know if it's 100% accurate. We're in the process of applying those same principles and trying to level up there. Um, I think it's ultimately just that. It's regardless, you're going to have to put systems in place. And so if you're going to put systems in place, right, a system for 10 guys is very different than a system for 100. But either way, you're going to need a system. So I don't know, that's been my big thought, and something that I've pushed really hard is just, think bigger. And that a lot of that mindset's come from working with Blake Erickson and seeing the just massive goals that he's accomplished, and even now in what he's doing and partnering with Ben Hardy. And so yeah, I'd say it as you really break it down, it doesn't make it a ton more difficult. It just means there's different steps that are required than a smaller goal.
Well, I think to that point, it's like there's the same 24 hours in a day, right? Like we all have
Yeah.
the same time. We all have technically, well, for the most part, we all have access to the same systems and the same tools.
Mhm.
And it's like, just how do we implement it and how do we put those things into place? So,
Mhm.
how is that like just the idea of like, okay, thinking bigger or being willing to do that? Like, okay, I know you said, hey, I'm still figuring some of this out. And I think we all are. Like, that's like why the name of the podcast, The Everyday Leader. It's like
Yeah.
every day we're trying to encourage people to level up in their life and wherever they are along the way. Um, I guess what have you seen happen for you as you've kind of embraced that mindset?
Yeah. Um, I think, yeah, as we've started operating that way, it attracts a lot more people, right? Playing bigger. I've seen, people want to be a part of something big. People don't really care to be just a mediocre part of something that's just normal. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's been big, just the mindset of how do we operate. And, like you said, there's 24 hours in a day regardless. And so you can either operate and think as, a $2 million organization, or you can operate and think as a $10 million organization or as a 9 figure organization. And recently that's been our big push, where this year we're breaking 8 figures, which has been a big goal for us. But ultimately also realizing, hey,
Okay, I found this on the web for where we're breaking 8 figures, which has been a big goal for us. Check it out.
Siri's turning
Seriously,
on for me.
all good.
um, but yeah, where we've now set this goal of, hey, we've been shooting for 8 figures, we're hitting that, but why not 9 figures? Right? Why can't we be a 9-figure door-to-door sales organization? We have a lot of the pieces. We have the best leaders, in my opinion, the entire industry. Guys are just unreal leaders, unreal performance in sales, accountability. And so it's like we've got all these pieces, and our mind's always been, how do we get to 8 figures? And that's how we optimized for 8 figures, and now we're there. So it's like, well, why don't we optimize for 9 figures? And doing so means, cool, we're going to have to train people differently. We're going to have a new standard for recruiting. We're going to have a new standard for accountability, right? Guys only putting 2 hours a week in for recruiting isn't going to cut it for a leader, right? It's like, you want to be a leader in a 9-figure organization. It now means, a lot of things have to change to be a part of that. And so I think that's been huge for us, is just as we've increased our goal, it now forces us to operate in an elevated state of mind, just naturally. If you're truly set on 9 figures, what got us to 8 figures won't continue working. So,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Great insights there. Yeah, Preston, I guess like what have you seen? Like, well, speaking about just great leaders in the organization, like what in your mind, what makes a great leader? What makes you talked about a leader being someone that others follow, but like what have you seen makes those people great? Like what makes them someone that others want to follow?
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of different pieces. And what's been cool in our organization with the partnerships we have is there's a lot of guys that play super crucial roles. And my strengths are good in certain areas, and they're not. I have weaknesses that are picked up by others, and so that's been a big piece. Is as you're finding people, you've got to have the humility and willingness to work with people, to partner with people, and let them have certain strengths. And so something that's been big within our organization, we have guys like Jacob Cole, who's going to hit $1 million this summer. Just in his own personal revenue, will produce $1 million. Patrick Zupik will do 750. Brock Morris, who'll do hundreds of thousands. A lot of guys that are just very key guys that go out, and every single day they lead from the front and produce an extremely high level. So I think that's a piece. You have to have somebody that can lead from the front, that moves the needle in sales. So I think that's a huge piece. Another piece is somebody that can minister. And this is, I don't know other industries super well, but in pest control, right, we're all away from family. We're all away from, home. And we're just with a group of these 30 guys, some of them friends, some of them random people that you're now living, sharing an apartment with. And it can be really tough. And so you've got to have somebody that can do, who can minister to people, who can really connect when guys are struggling. They can obviously call their mom, but who's the person out here that they can really sit down and connect with and emotionally recover? Like, door-to-door sales emotionally takes a toll that I don't know if it's experienced in any other industry, of what you experience emotionally in door-to-door sales. And so having a person that can do that. And then another huge piece is accountability and having tough conversations. It's really easy to get complacent. It's really easy over the course of 4 months to allow your standards to shrink, to show up at a 7 instead of a 10. And unless there's somebody that sits down and, dude, why, like, we're seeing a drop in results, what's going on, how are you doing mentally, are you in a routine, are you right, being the guy that can have hard conversations and, if need be, filter people out for the good of the team. And that's something that we've had a lot of success on our teams, and it has just been holding a high standard. And it's like, generally the mindset in door-to-door sales is, dude, you want to get as many people as possible. And we kind of operated that way the first couple years, and we realized that we had a lot of people and we did very little revenue. And as we started filtering people off, we had higher producers that would produce even more once the lower guys were cut off. Once we filter out the bottom standard and the standard raises, everybody performs better. And so in the past 2 years, we've operated more from that of, here's the standard. If you want to be a part of this team, you hit this standard. If you don't, great, go find another company, go find another team. This is the standard. If you want to be a part of a phenomenal team, here's what you're going to do. And by doing that and always keeping that standard going up, we've just seen guys come out who, we thought were capable of doing, this much. And because that standard is there, it challenges them and they end up performing, way better than anticipated. And so just over and over again, as we've held a high standard, as we filter people off, we just see the revenue increases per rep. They get better. They have better experiences. They learn more. They accomplish more. And just ends up being a win for everybody as the standards are held extremely high. And if you can't meet them, we love you, but you're going to need to go find somewhere new.
Yeah, no, I really love that. I love that idea of like, hey, we're just continuing to raise the standard. And yeah, curious, like how was there a difficult transition period like going through that? Like you kind of talked about how it used to be like almost like throw mud at the wall and see what sticks versus
Yeah.
it sounds like, hey, now it's like you've got to meet some higher requirements than you guys used to sound previously require.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it was kind of last year. It hit hard last summer. And because we were in that same state of mind where 10 recruits is phenomenal. It's like, dude, I'm gonna work all off season. Hopefully, I can get 10 recruits. Um, and so when you're pushing for just 10 recruits and then you have to fire one, it's like, dude, 10% of all the work I did is already gone. And maybe there's 3 or 4 of them that aren't meeting your standard. It's like, I just worked for 8 months recruiting these guys, and now I've got to get rid of half of my team. Mm. And so it was extremely difficult at that point in time. And even last year, so we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we started with about 22. A few of them kind of just quit. It was like, they can't handle this. And we had about 6 guys, so we were down to 18 after a few just said, they just couldn't do it. We're down to about 18 guys that wanted to be there and were working hard, but weren't, working hard to an extent, but not really bought in, not really dialed in. So we ended up actually, of those 18, filtered off 6 of them. And that was really scary for me at that time, because at that point I hadn't seen the results of a high standard. I've only operated out of, I need to get as many people hired as possible, because that's the only way for us to put up a lot of revenue. That's the only way for me and other guys to make good money, by helping them perform. And so it was really hard doing that, but was a really cool learning experience, because after we cut those 6, we were left with 12, and our 12 guys produced almost 70% more revenue per day than when we had all 18. Wow. And so we cut down to 12, and almost immediately our revenue was even more every single day. And so from that moment, it kind of cemented and a lot more certainty and a lot more confidence in, okay, it sucks to fire people, but if guys don't want to be here, that's okay. For the good of the team, we have to filter off the lower performers, or else the rest of our team will just stay mediocre. But we filter off the low performers, and all of a sudden this team becomes just phenomenal, lights out, top of the industry, which just produced, it's better for everybody all around.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I wasn't expecting us to kind of go that way today. Why do you think, like in your experience and especially going through that, why do you think that happened? Why do you think that I don't want to say like removing these people necessarily, but like, why do you think that setting that standard and holding that standard, even if that meant cutting a third of your current sales force, like, why do you think that impacted everybody else?
Yeah.
In the way that it did?
Yeah. What's really cool and unique about pest control is that it's a much easier sale than most industries. Just in the fact that, we're in the summertime, bugs are very bad. And, it's $60 to $150 a month, depending on, the plan and, size of the home, everything like that. And so it's like, it's affordable. Any homeowner in the United States can, they've got 60 to 150 bucks a month. It's going towards something different, so it's within a budget, and bugs are bad. Um, and so what we found in pest control is that anybody that works a certain standard will make deals. And so generally those low performers, it comes back to, okay, they're negative, they're not working hard, or they're not being coachable. It's like, especially on like a team like this, where we have a guy that's going to do $1 million on his own. It's like top, 0.01% in the door-to-door industry to go do that. And so, him, we have a few other guys that will win Golden Door Awards, which is $750,000 on the summer. So we'll have $1 million rep, a few $750,000 reps, a few reps that do 3, 4, 500K. And so as far as the skill, there's zero excuses. Um, as far as the work ethic, it's extremely hard. But if a guy's not working hard, if you're sitting on the curb, if you're going to the gas station all the time, you'll see that in your results. And same thing with the mindset, right? If you're going out every day telling yourself there's no deals, there, people have already been talked to, where there's already a door-to-door guy here this week. You put these limiting beliefs on you, and what's crazy, and you've probably experienced, is whatever you tell yourself is generally what happens. If you tell yourself this neighborhood has no deals for me, you're probably going to get no deals. The exact same neighborhood, you put a rep in it that's confident and is like, dude, I'm going to go make deals, and they go pull 5, 6, 7, 8 deals out of the exact same hood, because of that. And so much of it is just that mindset and work ethic, and then being coachable. And so what we found is that the guys that need to be filtered off, it's always negativity, work ethic, or not being coachable and not respecting the leaders. And as you get rid of guys that don't work hard, everybody else works harder, because they're now not the end of the barrel. But if you're working, if you're giving 80% and the guy next to you is giving 50%, you feel pretty good about yourself. But if you're now doing 80% and you're the worst one on the team, all of a sudden you start working a little bit harder because you don't want to be last. So that's what we've experienced. Same thing with the negativity is, if you're in your head, if you're negative, generally that is shared with others. And as you eliminate that negativity from the team, guys start getting in a much more positive mindset. And because of that, they perform better. So generally, obviously, there's a lot of different scenarios, but generally what I've found is that those lower performers, it's one of those three things, and those three things are very contagious. If somebody disrespects a leader, other people start doing that as well. If somebody doesn't work hard, other people start working a little bit less hard. If people have bad attitudes, others start having bad attitudes. So as we've eliminated those, once again, it's just the standard is now higher in each category. So guys produce more after that.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's all, I mean, and for what I'm hearing, it's almost like you guys have just found that if those below the standard drag everybody else below or closer to the standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Have you found, is it just the performance, or is there, I mean, have you had any experiences with, hey, guy who's performing and we've also had to get rid of a guy who's performing?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, obviously it's always unfortunate firing someone, but the guys that can go out and have some of that natural talent. But yeah, I'd say every summer we've also experienced that, where as you get through the summer, it does get more difficult. The mind, mentally it gets more challenging because it's a grind. And so we have had experience almost every summer where guys that are just naturally good at sales, they perform at a high level. And as we get through the summer, they just get more and more negative. And we have sit downs, we have conversations of, hey, how can we adjust this? And yeah, but every summer we have experienced that. And same thing happens actually. Even though they perform fairly well, and we fire a guy that's a higher performer due to negativity, everybody else performs better and ends up, outperforming what that high performing rep was doing. By filtering that high performing rep out, everybody else pulls more weight, and we've seen the exact same thing where more revenue is produced, even if a negative high performer is filtered off.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, because that's like my experience with the door-to-door industry. And this is obviously not every organization or every company or every sales team, but that often if you're selling, like you get a pass to, like, hey, you can be negative if you're selling every day, or you can talk back to the
Yeah.
manager if you hitting a certain number of accounts, where like almost where some companies will like, well, we don't want to lose his sales. And my
Yeah.
experience is like, it ends up dragging the rest of the company down way more.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's easier said than done
For
to like,
sure.
to cut a high performer who doesn't fit the culture, or doesn't fit like the mission or the
Yeah.
values of the organization. And it's like, I think it does more harm than good, and it's sometimes hard for people to see that, especially those
For
that it's
sure.
like, he's our top rep, or he's one of our better producers.
Yeah.
But sometimes those people can be just as
Yeah.
bad as, just as, I don't know,
Toxic.
as toxic as a low performer can be.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So yeah, I just say, yeah, if anybody's listening with that type of situation, and it's extremely difficult, but every single time I've never regretted doing that. Every single time we've done that, we've seen improved results, and even reps that were performing a lower spot, and we get rid of that toxic rep, and all of a sudden there's 2, 3, 4 guys that almost fill their spot, and just level up because they're no longer being held back by that influence. And so yeah, I just bite the bullet. But it only takes one time to bite that bullet to realize, okay, getting rid of that bad energy and that toxic energy to the team, regardless of their performance, will always yield better results.
Yeah, no, that's so good, so valuable. I think it's like something, and I don't think it just applies to the door-to-door industry. I think there's so many industries, sales, I mean, other organizations and teams where you think someone's valuable because of their skill set, yet they drag everyone else down. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, so good.
Yeah.
Well, cool. As we start getting close to wrapping up, Preston, couple questions. One, if anyone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that? Maybe if they're looking for a good summer sales job next year, like what's
Yeah.
the best way to get in touch with Preston?
Yeah, probably just on Instagram. Instagram is the Preston Tilley, and then just our sales page. I'd say go and follow that. It's Elevate Marketing is our sales page with our multiple teams. This summer we have 4 teams out across the country, and yeah, I'd say following along there. And if you have any interest, yeah, send a DM there, and we'll get connected with you. Yeah, it's we've got a lot of big things coming that we're pushing for. Like I mentioned, we're going from 8 figures this year, and now have a new goal, and we want to go hit 9 figures. And so there's going to be a lot of adjustments and a lot of things that we don't know we need to improve, and it'll probably be pretty bumpy. But we're fired up and excited to go out and just push for a massive goal and achieve something that's pretty rare.
Yeah. So two questions before we end. One, if we have a listener, pest control or not, but that's, hey, I want to be a better leader.
Yeah.
Whether they're whether they have the title or not, like what would be your advice to somebody to like step up and become a better leader, if that's something someone's looking to do?
Yeah. Yeah. A big thing that I've always tried to focus on is 1% change. And if you listen to Atomic Habits, hits on that hard. But there's a lot of different things, even for our team, that we've tried to apply that have turned us from a good team into a great team. And generally, it's a 1% difference. It's getting on the doors 30 minutes earlier. It's shortening lunch from an hour to 30 minutes. It's having a morning routine, getting up instead of rolling out of bed and going to meeting. It's getting up 30 minutes earlier, and it's just small 1% differences that compounded over time make massive differences, massive changes in your results. And so that's what I'd say is focus on the 1%. And generally, we know the things that we're not doing. All of us have leaders that we look up to, and there's things that it's like, if I could be a leader like that, and we see the things that they do, I'd say generally we know what we need to do differently. And because it's like I'm so far behind, we just don't. But every single day, you're either getting a little bit better or you're getting a little bit worse. So get 1% better every single day, and the results will be massive.
Yeah. Oh, Great advice. And what I love about that is it's not do something huge and monumental. It's too difficult. It's like find one little thing and work on that, and
Yeah.
then find the next one. So,
Mm.
and our last question that we love to ask our guests is how would you want to be remembered as a leader, Preston?
Yeah. Something Blake Erickson always said is, and I don't know if this is his quote or if he got this quote from someone and then shared it, but it's, listen, right? If they trust you, they'll buy from you. If you create an experience for someone, they'll never leave you. And if you transform somebody's life, they'll shout you, your message, your company. They'll shout it from the rooftops. Um, and that's been for me the big goal is I don't want to just be in this to help guys make some money, but for people to actually transform their entire future, um, is the reason I've stayed in this industry. I've been able to see it happen multiple times, and it's just so fulfilling to see people in certain scenarios and watch them their entire life, and families where we've had guys that come out and changes their whole life, and now their brothers come and sell with them, and it's just changed entire families and their course for the entire future. And so I'd say that's the big thing. Obviously, I haven't perfected. There's a lot of things I've got to do better, and I'm also trying to get 1% better every single day. But that's what, to be able to have an influence on people, to take risks, to bet on yourself, to don't put limiting beliefs on you. There's so much opportunity and possibility in the world. So don't limit yourself, get around the right people, and go transform your life.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Preston. Appreciate you taking some time today to jump on. No, you're in the middle of a summer right now and
Yeah,
dealing with all that goes with running a big team. And so appreciate you taking some time and jumping on today to talk leadership with me. So,
of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you're especially if you're in that college age and you're looking for a good group or good team, Preston would be a good guy to follow. He puts out a lot of good content and a good person to be in touch with. And so
Appreciate that.
appreciate that. Appreciate you today, Preston. And to our listener, today's the day.
Thanks for joining us on the Everyday Leader podcast. If you're ready to take your leadership journey even further, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for more insights and practical tips. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram to stay a part of our growing community. Just follow the links in the show notes. If this episode impacted you, please help us spread the word and share the link with a friend from wherever you're listening.